Elijah Carpenter tapped his fingers on his glass desk, staring at the expense report on his screen. It was nearly midnight at the Nebula Technologies headquarters, and most employees had gone home hours ago. The building was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning system. Something caught his eye in the report. An employee named Olivia Martinez had been ordering food deliveries to her home address after midnight for the past 3 weeks. This alone wouldn't be strange, but Olivia was also logging double shifts while working remotely. Her productivity numbers were excellent, better than ever in fact, but the pattern seemed odd. Elijah ran his hand through his graying hair. At 45, he had been CEO of Nebula Technologies for 7 years. The company had grown from a small startup to one of Earth's leading aerospace engineering firms under his leadership. Their current project involved developing navigation systems for humanity's first interstellar colony ships. The board meeting earlier that day had been tense. Several board members were pushing to cut costs ahead of the interstellar project launch. "We need to trim expenses wherever possible," Gerald Stone, the finance director, had insisted. Some employees might be taking advantage of the overtime system while working from home. Elijah hadn't named names during the meeting, but Olivia's expense reports were exactly the kind of thing Gerald was talking about. Yet, something didn't add up. Olivia was one of their best engineers. Her work on the quantum navigation system was groundbreaking. She wasn't the type to cheat the company. He closed the expense report and opened Olivia's personnel file. 32 years old, graduated, top of her class from MIT, recruited by Nebula 5 years ago, single, no children. Excellent performance reviews, no red flags. Elijah sighed and leaned back in his chair. He could send this to HR for investigation, but that might cause unnecessary trouble for a valuable employee. He could call Olivia directly, but if there was a reasonable explanation, it might seem like he didn't trust her. There was a third option. He glanced at his watch. It was late, but not too late. The food delivery to Olivia's address was scheduled for 12:30. If he hurried, he could see for himself what was going on. "This is crazy," he muttered as he grabbed his jacket. "I'm the CEO, not a private detective." But something about this situation nagged at him. In the elevator down to the parking garage, he rationalized his decision. Olivia was working on their most important project. If she was burning herself out, he needed to know. If something else was going on, he needed to know that too. The night was cool as Elijah drove through the city. Traffic was light, and he reached Olivia's neighborhood in 20 minutes. He found her address easily, a modest house in a quiet suburban area. He parked his car a block away and walked the rest of the distance, feeling increasingly foolish. "What am I doing here?" he whispered to himself as he approached the house. All the windows were lit up despite the late hour. He stood across the street, uncertain of his next move. A small drone appeared from around the corner carrying a food delivery package. It flew directly to Olivia's front door and hovered, waiting. The door opened and Olivia stepped out. She was wearing what looked like work clothes, jeans and a Nebula Technologies sweatshirt. She took the package from the drone, which then flew away. Elijah expected her to go back inside, but instead she walked around to the side of the house, disappearing from view. Curious, he crossed the street and cautiously followed. A faint, blue glow was coming from the backyard. Staying close to the house, Elijah peered around the corner. What he saw made him freeze in place. The backyard had been transformed into some kind of makeshift laboratory. Various pieces of equipment were arranged around what appeared to be a damaged metal pod about the size of a small car. The pod's design was like nothing Elijah had ever seen, with smooth curves and materials that seemed to shift color under the yard lights. But what truly shocked him was what, or rather who, was inside the pod. Through a clear section of the pod's hull, Elijah could see a figure. It wasn't human. The being had a humanoid shape, but with blue skin that seemed slightly translucent. Its head was larger than a human's, and it had large, dark eyes that took up much of its face. Olivia approached the pod with the food package and pressed something on the side. A section slid open and she spoke softly to the being inside. Elijah couldn't hear what she was saying, but her tone was gentle, like someone talking to a sick friend. She carefully transferred what looked like specially prepared food from the delivery package to some kind of tray, which she then placed inside the pod. Elijah stepped backward in shock, accidentally kicking a metal garbage can. The noise echoed through the quiet night. Olivia spun around, her eyes wide with fear. She quickly pressed something on her wrist and a field of energy appeared around the pod, making it harder to see. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice shaking slightly. She grabbed what looked like a tool from a nearby table, holding it like a weapon. Elijah realized he had no choice but to reveal himself. He stepped forward into the light. "Olivia," he said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "It's Elijah Carpenter." Her mouth fell open in shock. "Mr. Carpenter, what are you doing here?" "I noticed your expense reports," he said, his eyes moving between her and the pod. "The late-night food deliveries, the double shifts. I was concerned." Olivia's expression changed from fear to resignation. She lowered the tool. "I suppose I should have known someone would notice eventually," she said. She looked back at the pod, where the alien being was watching them with large, curious eyes. "This isn't what it looks like." "Well, actually, it's exactly what it looks like, but I can't explain." Elijah took a deep breath, trying to process what he was seeing. In all his years in aerospace engineering, he had never actually expected to encounter proof of alien life. "Yes," he said slowly. "I think you better explain." Olivia nodded. "You should come inside," she said, gesturing toward her house. "This is going to take a while." As Elijah followed her, he glanced back at the pod and the alien inside it. The being raised what looked like a hand in what might have been a greeting. Elijah hesitantly raised his own hand in return. Whatever explanation Olivia had, Elijah knew that nothing at Nebula Technologies or on Earth would ever be the same again. Olivia led Elijah into her house. The living room was simple but neat, except for several computer screens and technical equipment taking up the dining table. She gestured toward the couch. "Please sit down," she said. Her hands were shaking slightly as she poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot that looked like it had been made hours ago. She handed one to Elijah. "How long has it been here?" Elijah asked, still trying to process what he had seen. 3 weeks, Olivia replied. "His name is Zeph. At least that's the closest I can pronounce in English. He's a scientist from something called the Cygnus Federation." Elijah took a sip of the lukewarm coffee. "And you found him? Where exactly?" "I was hiking in the National Forest about 30 miles north of here. I saw something crash. When I reached the site, I found his escape pod damaged but mostly intact." Olivia sat down across from him. "He was injured but conscious. He showed me how to help him." "And you didn't think to call the authorities?" Elijah asked, keeping his voice neutral. Olivia laughed without humor. "And what would they have done? The military would have taken him away. He would have become a test subject, not a visitor. Or worse." She had a point. Elijah had enough government contracts to know how they would react to an alien visitor. "How can you communicate with him?" Elijah asked. "He has a device that helps him learn languages quickly. He's already picked up basic English. And he's shown me how to use some of his technology." Olivia looked directly at Elijah. "Mr. Carpenter, Zeph's ship was destroyed in an asteroid field. He's the only survivor of his crew. His escape pod crashed here by accident. He's been trying to repair his communication device to contact his people. And the food deliveries? He can eat some of our food, but it needs to be prepared in specific ways. I've been ordering ingredients and preparing meals for him based on his instructions." Elijah nodded slowly. "And the double shifts?" "I work my regular hours during the day. At night, I help Zeph repair his communications while also adapting some of his technology to our systems." Olivia hesitated. "Mr. Carpenter, you have to understand something. Zeph has knowledge that could change everything for us. His people's technology is centuries ahead of ours." Elijah leaned forward. "What kind of technology?" "Their propulsion systems could reduce the journey to Alpha Centauri from decades to months. Their navigation systems make our quantum designs look primitive." Olivia's eyes lit up with excitement. And he's willing to share this knowledge, not as payment, but as friendship. Why would he do that? Because that's what they do. The Cygnus Federation is a peaceful alliance of species that share knowledge and resources. They don't conquer or exploit. They connect and collaborate. Elijah stood up and paced the room. This was bigger than anything he had imagined when he followed the food delivery. Much bigger. "I want to speak with him," he said finally. Olivia nodded. "I thought you might." She checked her watch. "He should be feeling better after eating. Follow me." They went back outside to the makeshift lab in the backyard. Olivia pressed a sequence on her wrist device, and the energy field around the pod faded. She approached and spoke softly. "Zeph, this is Elijah Carpenter. He's my boss, the leader of the company I told you about." The alien being moved forward in the pod. Now that Elijah could see him clearly, he noticed that Zeph was about the size of a human child, maybe 4 feet tall. His limbs were thin but proportional, and his fingers longer and more numerous than human hands. His face had features in roughly the same places as a human, but his eyes were larger and completely black with no visible whites or pupils. "Greetings, Elijah Carpenter," Zeph said. His voice had an odd quality, like someone speaking through water, but the words were clear enough. "Olivia has told me about your work in space exploration." Elijah found himself at a loss for words. He had prepared for many situations in his business career, but first contact with an alien being wasn't one of them. "Hello," he managed to say. "I'm pleased to meet you." "The pleasure is mutual," Zeph replied. "I apologize for my current condition. The crash damaged my environmental support systems. Olivia has been very helpful in repairing them." Elijah looked at the equipment surrounding the pod. Now that he had a closer look, he recognized some Nebula Technologies prototypes that Olivia must have brought home. "Is that our X7 molecular resonator?" he asked, pointing to a device connected to the pod. Olivia looked slightly guilty. "Yes. I needed it to help stabilize his life support. I was going to bring it back." Elijah waved away her concern. "That's not important right now." He turned back to Zeph. "Olivia tells me you're trying to contact your people." Zeph made a gesture with his hand. "Yes. My communication device was damaged in the crash. We're attempting to repair it and boost its signal strength to reach the nearest relay station." "How far away are your people?" Elijah asked. "The nearest outpost is approximately 7 light-years from your solar system." Elijah raised his eyebrows. "That's much closer than I would have guessed." "The galaxy is more populated than you might think," Zeph said. "My people have been aware of Earth for some time, but we have a policy of non-interference with developing worlds until they reach certain technological milestones or until circumstances force contact, as has happened now." Elijah's mind was racing with the implications. "And if we help you contact your people, they would send a ship to retrieve me. It would take approximately 3 of your months to reach Earth." Olivia stepped forward. "Mr. Carpenter, Nebula's deep space relay network could boost Zeph's signal. With access to that, he could contact his people immediately." Elijah looked at her. "That would mean bringing others into the secret, the relay operators at minimum." "Not necessarily," Olivia said. "With your authorization codes, we could route a signal through the network without alerting the operators. It would look like a routine system test." Elijah faced a decision that would affect not just his company, but potentially all of humanity. Company policy required reporting any unusual findings or contacts during space-related work. The government contracts specifically mentioned protocols for potential extraterrestrial discoveries. But looking at Zeph, Elijah didn't see a discovery or a threat. He saw a lost traveler in need of help. "What would happen," he asked slowly, "if we helped you contact your people? Would they come here in force?" "They would send a single diplomatic vessel," Zeph said. "First contact is always handled with great care. My people wish to build bridges, not invade." Elijah took a deep breath and made his decision. "Olivia, clear your schedule tomorrow. We're going to help our new friend." The next morning, Elijah arrived at Nebula Technologies earlier than usual. He went straight to his office and locked the door. What he was about to do would break several company rules and possibly some government regulations. But after meeting Zeph, he felt it was the right thing to do. He accessed the company's secure system and created a new project file, Special Classified Project Starlight. He assigned Olivia as the project lead with top clearance and allocated resources from his discretionary budget. This would give her legitimate access to any equipment she needed without raising questions. His phone rang. It was Gerald Stone, the finance director. "Elijah, I just got a notification about a new project approval." "Starlight? This isn't in our quarterly plan." "It's a special project, Gerald. Came up suddenly. Don't worry about the budget. I'm using my discretionary fund." "But what exactly is it? The description is quite vague." Elijah had prepared for this. "It's an exploration of alternative navigation systems. Very experimental. I can't say more right now, but if it works out, it could give us a significant edge for the colony ships." Gerald didn't sound happy, but he couldn't argue with the CEO. "Fine. Just keep the board updated." "Will do," Elijah said, ending the call. He knew he was taking a risk, but after seeing what he had last night, the potential rewards were too great to ignore. At 9 o'clock, Olivia arrived at his office. She looked tired but excited. "Did you get any sleep?" he asked. "A few hours," she admitted. "I was helping Zeph make final adjustments to his communication device. It's ready to connect to our relay network." "Good. I've set up a new project code for you. It will give you access to whatever you need. As far as anyone else knows, you're working on experimental navigation systems." Olivia looked relieved. "Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Call me Elijah. I think we're past formalities now." He pulled up the Deep Space Relay Network on his screen. "I've scheduled a system test for noon today. That will give us a 30-minute window to send Zeph's message without anyone noticing." "That should be enough time. Zeph says the message itself is very compact. It's the frequency alignments that will take most of the time." They spent the morning preparing. Elijah signed off on equipment requisitions for Olivia, making sure everything looked routine on paper. They arranged for a secure server connection from a small, rarely used lab on the 5th floor of the building. At 11:30 they went to the lab. Olivia set up the equipment while Elijah stood guard outside, making sure no one interrupted them. At precisely noon, the system test began. Olivia connected a strange, crystalline device to their computer. "This is Zeph's communication module. I'm linking it to our network now." On the screen, unusual characters and symbols appeared. Nothing like any programming language Elijah had seen before. "Is that working correctly?" he asked. "Yes. Zeph taught me the basics of their communication protocols. The message includes his identity codes, location data, and a brief explanation of what happened to his ship." The screen flickered as the signal was routed through the company's Deep Space Relay Network. Normally used for communicating with distant probes and satellites, the network was now sending a message much further than it was designed for. "Signal is transmitting," Olivia said. "Now we wait to see if there's a response." They didn't have to wait long. Just 10 minutes later, the screen lit up with new symbols. "It worked," Olivia exclaimed. "They received his message." She quickly ran the incoming data through the translation matrix Zeph had helped her create. The message was simple but clear. Signal received. Identity confirmed. Diplomatic vessel dispatched. Estimated arrival: 92 Earth days. Maintain current location. Assistance appreciated. Elijah felt a wave of relief mixed with apprehension. In just over 3 months, an alien ship would arrive on Earth. Everything would change. "We should get back to Zeph with this news," he said. They carefully disconnected the equipment, leaving no trace of what they had done. The system test would be logged as successful but unremarkable. That evening, they returned to Olivia's house. Zeph was visibly stronger than the night before. His blue skin seemed to glow more brightly, and he was able to sit up in his pod. "The message was received," Olivia told him. "Your people are sending a ship. They'll be here in about 3 months." Zeph made a gesture that they had come to recognize as happiness. "Thank you, Olivia and Elijah. Your help will not be forgotten by my people. What happens now? Elijah asked. Now we prepare, Zeph said. My people will expect a formal greeting. As the first humans they have met, you will represent your species. Elijah hadn't thought about that aspect. I'm not a diplomat. Neither am I, Zeph said. I am a scientist. But circumstances have made us both representatives of our peoples. 3 months is not a lot of time to prepare for first contact, Olivia noted. It is enough, Zeph assured them. And during this time, I can share knowledge that will help your company and your world. Elijah leaned forward. What kind of knowledge? I can provide principles for more efficient energy systems, improved materials for your spacecraft, and navigation calculations that will make your planned colony missions much safer. That would be incredible, Olivia said. But won't your people mind you sharing technology with us? The Cygnus Federation believes in helping developing worlds that show promise. Your world is at a critical point in its development. You are reaching for the stars but still struggling with resource limitations and environmental challenges. The right knowledge, properly applied, could help you overcome these obstacles. Elijah considered the implications. Some people might want to use this technology for weapons or to gain advantage over others. That is why I am sharing it with you two specifically, Zeph said. I have observed Olivia's compassion and your sense of responsibility. I trust you to use this knowledge wisely. The responsibility was enormous, but Elijah felt ready to accept it. We'll do our best, he promised. Over the next few days, they established a routine. Olivia continued working her regular job during the day, while Elijah made sure her special project had all the resources it needed. In the evenings, they both went to Olivia's house to learn from Zeph. The alien's health improved steadily. Soon he was able to leave his pod for short periods, though he still needed to stay within the protective field Olivia had set up in her backyard. One evening, as they were reviewing Zeph's designs for an improved propulsion system, Elijah's phone rang. It was Gerald Stone again. Elijah, we need to talk about Project Starlight. The board is asking questions and I don't have answers. Elijah glanced at Zeph, who was showing Olivia how to calculate a new type of trajectory. In less than 3 months, an alien ship would arrive. What would happen if the board, or worse the government, discovered what they were doing before then? I'll meet with them tomorrow, Elijah said. I think it's time to share some of our progress. But how much could he safely reveal? The next morning, Elijah sat in the conference room facing the board members of Nebula Technologies. Gerald Stone stood at the front, pointing at financial charts on the screen. As you can see, this Project Starlight is consuming significant resources without any explanation of its purpose or expected returns, Gerald said, looking directly at Elijah. The shareholders are getting nervous. Elijah stood up. He had spent half the night preparing for this meeting, trying to figure out how much he could reveal without causing panic or putting Zeph in danger. Project Starlight is the most important initiative our company has ever undertaken, he began. I've been secretive about it for good reason. What we're developing could revolutionize space travel. He walked to the front of the room and connected his tablet to the display. On the screen appeared technical drawings of the improved propulsion system Zeph had shown them. This is a new type of engine that could reduce travel time to Alpha Centauri by 80%. Instead of a 25-year journey, we're looking at just 5 years. The board members leaned forward, suddenly interested. How is this possible? Asked Sharon Wells, head of engineering. These calculations don't follow any physics model I'm familiar with. That's because we're using principles that go beyond current scientific understanding, Elijah said, choosing his words carefully. Olivia Martinez made a breakthrough while working on the quantum navigation system. And you didn't think to share this with the rest of the engineering team? Sharon asked, clearly skeptical. We needed to verify the principles before going public. The implications are enormous. Gerald crossed his arms. And where did these principles come from? It looks like you're breaking the laws of physics. Not breaking them, Elijah said. Just understanding them better. Think of it like this. We've been traveling on highways, and suddenly we found a shortcut through terrain we thought was impassable. He showed them more designs, including materials that could withstand the stresses of the new propulsion system. The board members began asking technical questions, which Elijah answered as best he could with the knowledge Zeph had shared. By the end of the meeting, most of the board was cautiously supportive. Only Gerald remained openly skeptical. "I want to see a working prototype," he insisted, "not just drawings and theories." "We're working on it," Elijah promised. "Give us 2 more months, and you'll have your prototype." As he left the meeting, Elijah knew he had bought them some time. 2 months wasn't enough to build a working prototype of Zeph's advanced technology, but it would get them closer to the arrival of the Cygnus ship. That evening, he went to Olivia's house to tell her about the meeting. "The board is on board. For now," he said, smiling at his own wordplay. "But we need to show them something real in 2 months." Zeph, who was now strong enough to sit in Olivia's living room, considered this. "I can help you build a simple demonstration model, not a full propulsion system but enough to prove the principles are sound." "That would be perfect," Elijah said. "And how are you feeling?" "Much stronger. Olivia's care and the nutrients from your food have helped me recover faster than expected." Over the next few weeks, they worked together in the evenings and weekends. Zeph taught them how to build a small demonstration unit that converted electrical energy into propulsion using principles unknown to Earth science. Elijah brought key components from Nebula's labs, while Olivia programmed the control systems. Meanwhile, Elijah formally assigned Olivia to lead Project Starlight during the day. He gave her a small team of engineers but told them they would be working on separate aspects of the project without seeing the whole picture. This way, they could make progress without revealing Zeph's existence. One evening, as they worked in Olivia's garage on the demonstration unit, Elijah received a call from security. "Mr. Carpenter, we have a situation at the office. Someone broke into the Project Starlight lab. Nothing was taken, but the intruder copied files from the secure server." Elijah's heart raced. "Do we know who it was?" "The security cameras were disabled. But we found this." The security chief sent a photo to Elijah's phone. It showed a small metal object with a government seal on it. "Call the police," Elijah said. "I'll be there shortly." He showed the photo to Olivia and Zeph. "That's a tracking device used by the National Security Agency," Olivia said. "How would they know about Project Starlight?" "Gerald must have talked to someone," Elijah said grimly. "He never fully bought my explanation." Zeph looked worried. "If your government discovers my presence, they may try to take me into custody. My people's policy of peaceful contact could be jeopardized." "We won't let that happen," Elijah promised. "But we need to be more careful now." That night, after examining the break-in, Elijah went home feeling uneasy. Someone was watching Project Starlight and, by extension, possibly watching him and Olivia. The next day, as he drove to work, he noticed a black car following him. At the office, he saw men in suits talking to security. When he checked his company email, he found a message from a government address requesting a meeting about national security concerns related to recent technological developments. He called Olivia immediately. "Don't come to the office today. They're watching us." "What should we do about Zeph?" Elijah thought quickly. "We need to move him. Your house isn't safe anymore. I have a cabin in the mountains. No one knows about it except my family. How will we get him there without being seen?" "I have an idea. Meet me at the back entrance of the building in 1 hour. Bring the portable field generator Zeph has been using." Elijah went to his office and began working normally, as if nothing was wrong. When an assistant told him that government agents wanted to speak with him, he said he would meet them after lunch. Then he quietly went to the Project Starlight lab and gathered the most important equipment and data. Using his CEO clearance, he accessed the company's private garage where experimental vehicles were kept. One of these was a self-driving delivery van they had been developing for lunar colonies. It wasn't street legal yet, but it worked. He loaded the equipment into the van and programmed it to drive to his cabin. Then he went to meet Olivia at the back entrance. She arrived with a large equipment case that hummed softly. Is Zeph in there? Elijah whispered, looking at the case. Olivia nodded. The portable field generator creates a safe environment for him. He can stay in there for about 6 hours before we need to recharge it. Good. Follow me. They went to Elijah's personal car, placed the case carefully in the back seat, and drove away from the building. In the rearview mirror, Elijah saw the black car start to follow them. We've got company, he said quietly. What do we do now? Olivia asked, trying to stay calm. Now we find out how good a driver I really am, Elijah said, pressing the accelerator. Hold on tight, this is going to be interesting. Elijah sped through the city streets, making sudden turns and doubling back whenever possible. Olivia held tightly to the case containing Zeph, trying to keep it stable. They're still behind us, she said, looking back at the black car. Not for long, Elijah replied. He turned sharply into an underground parking garage, drove to the lowest level, and parked behind a large concrete pillar. Quick, get out and transfer to that blue sedan, he said, pointing to a car parked nearby. He pulled out his phone and tapped a few buttons. It's a company car with anonymous registration. I've just unlocked it remotely. They hurried across the garage with the case and got into the blue sedan. As they drove up and out a different exit, they saw the black car still searching the lower levels. That won't fool them for long, Elijah said, but it gives us a head start. They drove north toward the mountains, taking back roads instead of the highway. After 2 hours of careful driving, watching constantly for followers, they reached Elijah's cabin. It was small but well built, hidden among tall pine trees with a view of the valley below. The self-driving van had already arrived with their equipment. They quickly brought everything inside, including the case holding Zeph. Once they activated the portable field generator at full power, Zeph was able to emerge from the case. Thank you, he said, looking around the cabin. You have taken great risks to help me. We couldn't let them take you, Olivia said. Who knows what they would have done? Elijah checked his phone. No signal up here. That's good for now, but we'll need to communicate eventually. He turned on a satellite radio. This will let us get news at least. They spent the next week in the cabin, continuing their work on the demonstration unit. With no distractions, they made faster progress than before. Zeph taught them more about his people's technology, and Olivia programmed the control systems to work with Earth components. Elijah occasionally drove to a nearby town to get supplies and check the news. The story had broken in the media. Nebula Technologies CEO missing after government inquiry. The company's stock was dropping, and the board had appointed Gerald Stone as acting CEO. We can't hide forever, Elijah told Olivia and Zeph when he returned from town. The ship from the Cygnus Federation will arrive in 6 weeks. We need to prepare for that meeting. But how? Olivia asked. The government is looking for us, and Gerald has taken over the company. We need allies, Elijah said. People we can trust who have influence. He thought for a moment, then smiled. I think I know just the person. The next day, Elijah drove to the town again and used a public phone to make a call. Dr. Morgan, this is Elijah Carpenter. I need your help with something important, something that will change everything we know about space. Dr. Linda Morgan was the director of the International Space Agency and an old friend from university. She agreed to meet Elijah alone at a neutral location. 2 days later, in a quiet corner of a small restaurant, Elijah told Dr. Morgan the whole story. She listened without interrupting, her expression changing from skepticism to amazement. This is either the most elaborate hoax I've ever heard, or the most important moment in human history, she said when he finished. It's real, Linda, and I need your help to make sure the first official contact between our species is peaceful. What do you need from me? Protection for Zeph until his people arrive, and a proper reception when they do. Not military, not secret. Agents, scientists, and diplomats. Dr. Morgan nodded slowly. I have the authority to classify this as an ISA matter, which would override national security concerns. But I need to see Zeph first. I need proof. Elijah had expected this. I can take you to him tomorrow. The next day, Dr. Morgan followed Elijah to the cabin. When she saw Zeph, she stood speechless for several minutes. Then she began asking questions. Scientific, thoughtful questions that Zeph answered patiently. By the end of the day, she was convinced. "I'll help you," she said, "but we need to move quickly." Over the next week, Dr. Morgan used her authority to create a special task force for first contact protocols. She brought in a small team of trusted scientists and diplomats, sworn to secrecy. Elijah and Olivia were officially appointed as liaison due to their existing relationship with Zeph. The government agents who had been pursuing them were ordered to stand down, though they continued to monitor the situation. Gerald Stone was forced to step aside, and Elijah was reinstated as CEO of Nebula Technologies. The company's stock soared when it was announced that they had made a breakthrough in propulsion technology. 5 weeks later, as the arrival of the Cygnus ship approached, a reception area was prepared at an ISA facility in a remote desert location. The demonstration unit they had built was set up to show Earth's willingness to learn and collaborate. The night before the ship was due to arrive, Elijah, Olivia, and Zeph stood outside the cabin looking up at the stars one last time before heading to the reception site. "Your people took a big risk helping me," Zeph said. "Not everyone would have made the same choice." "We did what was right," Olivia said simply. "That's what gives me hope for your species," Zeph replied. "You have the capacity to overcome fear and act with compassion, even towards someone completely different from yourselves." The next day they gathered at the reception site with Dr. Morgan and her team. A large open area had been prepared with various instruments set up to record the historic event. At exactly noon, just as Zeph had predicted, a light appeared in the sky. It grew larger, resolving into a sleek vessel unlike any human spacecraft. It descended silently, landing gently on the designated area. Everyone held their breath as a door opened in the side of the ship. A ramp extended to the ground, and 3 figures appeared. They were similar to Zeph in appearance, but dressed in what appeared to be ceremonial garments. Zeph stepped forward and made a gesture of greeting. The lead figure returned the gesture, then turned toward the humans. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "On behalf of the Cygnus Federation, I greet you in peace and friendship. Thanks to the kindness shown to our scientist, we now offer you the hand of alliance." Dr. Morgan stepped forward as humanity's official representative, but it was Elijah and Olivia who had made this moment possible. As they watched the beginning of formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Cygnus Federation, Elijah reflected on how it had all started with his simple decision to follow a food delivery. That night, at the celebration dinner, the Cygnus ambassador presented Earth with a gift: a data crystal containing the star maps of all known inhabited systems in their region of the galaxy. "This is just the beginning," the ambassador said. "There is so much we can learn from each other." As Elijah looked at Olivia, who was deep in conversation with one of the Cygnus scientists, he knew that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the smallest acts of curiosity and compassion. The journey that had begun with a CEO's suspicion about late-night food deliveries had led to humanity's greatest adventure, and it was only just beginning.